One of the things that Richard was talking about is the borough taking over the certificate from Aero Refuge. And the primary reason for that is because the RCA does not recognize costs associated with recycling as a regulatory requirement. So if Aero Refuge wanted to implement a recycling system and they wanted to collect rates, or they wanted to add that to the rate base, the RCA doesn't allow that as a cost for setting rates. So therefore, they're not going to go any further to establish a recycling program, a curbside recycling program. If they were to contract with the borough, and the borough were to take over the certificate, the borough would dictate what services Aero would provide to both residential and commercial customers. They would establish a rate base and also the standards and other things that they could implement through public policy. That's one of the key things, and that's primarily the biggest decision that the borough's going to have to make. Because once they do that, everything else kind of falls into place. The collection system that we're recommending is a cart-based collection system. Some of you have seen the carts. There's a 96-gallon cart, barrel cart. We're also recommending smaller carts too for those who only generate a bag or in this case, a 35-gallon cart a week. We would also recommend that the second cart, the middle cart, the 65-gallon would be utilized for recycling, recyclable materials. And if you generate a lot of recyclable materials or garbage, you could probably opt for the 95-gallon cart. The reason we would implement a cart system is because it's a uniform system. We can set rates on the volume or the size of that cart, and we can do so very easily. We have not dictated, nor would we recommend what kind of collection system that the hauler utilize. In this case, either a side load truck like this, and currently right now the hauler has a rear load truck that they have a tip on the back, or a fully automated collection system, which is what they'd like to go to. In this area, the mechanical arm picks up the cart, the driver stays in the truck, and it also reduces the amount of people picking up the garbage from a 2- or 3-man crew to a 1-person crew, and it can also pick up the can quicker and faster and a lot safer. This is a system that we have recommended implementing in other jurisdictions across the United States. The one to the left is one we did in Silver City a couple months back. In New Mexico, excuse me. The other recommendations: design, construct a MRF to handle the recyclable materials, and design the facility would be such that you could expand it to include other materials, be it yard debris later on, or organic material, electronic waste, or other things that the community deems necessary. We would also, in conjunction with the whole system, do a continued and sustained outreach program where people are told what their options are and they're informed on a regular basis. We would also design the curbside recycling collection program, like I said, with commingled materials. Therefore, that one cart, you throw all your materials in, with the exception of glass. It would be paper, plastic, tin, plastic bottles. Those materials would be picked up, taken to the recycle center, they'd be baled, they'd be put on a container, and they'd be shipped down to Seattle where they would process the materials. Richard was saying that one of the resources they have available is waste management, and they have a branch of their company called Recycle America, and it is the biggest handler and biggest broker of recycled materials in the United States. And what that does, it allows a small community like Juneau to get the same price that Waste Management's getting. So when overseas markets or domestic markets come looking for materials, be it plastic or paper, they come to Waste Management because they know they can get those material tons quickly. You'd get the benefit of that price. We would also recommend later on designing and implementing a commercial recycling program. And I know that there is an interest, and I know that Glenn from Aero Refuge is starting to look at that and offer that to some of the people or some of the commercial businesses. That would be another option that we would recommend. And then the other thing is material reduction. And this is a city policy, and it could start by implementing minimum standards for materials and or requirements for construction, in this case demolition. What could companies do to reduce the amount of material going to the landfill, and what could they do to divert those materials to other purposes, be it either recycling or maybe an organic program to make compost. when we looked at rates, or we looked at costs, we modeled costs based on a broad array of assumptions. And what I'm showing you here now is just that. It's to give the people, or to give everybody an idea, if they were to move to a new collection system, what would be the impact of their collection rates? On the assumptions, we assumed that the hauler would have brand new trucks, everybody would get a cart. In doing so, roughly right now, your 32-gallon can picked up once a week is just a little about $16.50 a month. If they were to stay with the continued manual collection system, you would expect that rate to rise to about $23.50. If they were to implement a new collection program, be it a truck, either semi-automated like the picture I showed you, or a fully automated, that would drop down a little bit lower, maybe to $23 a month. And one of the first things everyone's going to look at is say, why would I want to pay $4, $5, or $6 a month more for recycling services? And my question for you is, those who recycle or avidly attend the recycling center, how much of a convenience would it be to take all those materials and put them in a cart and roll them down to the end of your street on a every other week basis? It's a lot simpler, and giving people the convenience of a roll cart as opposed to loading up in their car or truck and bringing it to a recycling center is a cost that you have to weigh. You know, what's my time worth, and what's the amount of materials that I can maintain or pull out of the street by using that system? So again, these are our base level for comparison purposes. Are these the costs that you're going to see? It'd be great if it was. They may go down a little bit lower. They may go up a little lower. It depends also on the contract that you would negotiate with Aero Refuse. We also projected the total cost of processed materials or processing recyclable materials. And again, in the garbage business, as with any other manufacturing process, the more materials that you handle, the lower the cost will be, because you're covering those fixed costs. And so, you know, the anticipated diversion rate, if you could get to 40% just based on residential, you know, your cost per ton is $85. One of the misnomers that a lot of people have is they say recycling is free because they look at the value of the materials. And there is a value of the materials. However, being in Juneau and being far from everybody, you have to load up those containers or load up those materials and send them down to Seattle. So there's a substantial cost to that.
I think we'll just leave that. I wanted to add a couple of comments and then we'll open for questions. Since this is obviously a chamber luncheon, I want to say a word or two about potential impacts on businesses, and then a couple of more items, and then just open up to questions. We don't see any major changes in the way garbage is collected from businesses, institutions, schools at this point in time. Aero Refuse is equipped to handle your trash in a relatively efficient manner. Looking at it from a collection point of view, the problems are on the residential side, where it's mainly a manual method of collection. On the commercial side, we just don't see any major changes. We do see a commercial recycling program, primarily concentrating on paper, probably initially various types of paper, cardboard, office paper, computer paper, newspaper, whatever kinds of paper you generate. The same basic approach, everything gets commingled and mixed into one container and taken to the facility that we're talking about. So the essential change that we're talking about is on the residential side for the refuse collection. Just a couple of other quick things. As Chris mentioned, the point of the whole system that we're recommending is that there are going to be some initial costs up front, but they're going to be savings down the road. You're trying to prolong the life of the landfill. So we've done an initial calculation that says, overall, if you recycle or divert 40% of the total tonnage that's currently going into the landfill, you're going to extend the life of that landfill by around 10 years. So that pushes the ultimate decision about what to do regarding disposal 40 years out rather than 30 years. 30 years is still an appreciable amount of time in the business. And there are other technologies that may or may not come up down the road that can be looked at. You're not in a crisis situation. And the recommendations that we're presenting to you are not technologically risky. They're known technologies, and they're being implemented in many other parts of the country. The other thing is that this truck, or even this truck, what but also pick up the recyclables, so you're getting double utilization out of the same vehicle. That again is a reason for the recommendation. I think with that, we can conclude the formal remarks.